Hello, everybody. Welcome to Candid, where we talk to everyday people about their past relationship struggles, where they struggled, how they moved forward, and the strategies that they used. And so today I'm really excited to introduce Jim Vance, who is an identity and success coach for men specifically. And he is here to give us so much value around relationships and also share some stories from his past relationships. So Jim, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So Jim, I wanted to kind of just use this as a jumping off point is
Okay.
something that you had said about your past relationships. And I know that we might not focus on one in particular, but you mentioned that you had struggled a little bit in the past. And so one thing that you said was, I just got tired of settling for something that was unaligned in my soul, that felt more energy sucking than life giving. And the reason I wanted to start with this and ask you to give us a little bit more clarity around what you meant is because I think a lot of people struggle with this, right? It's like when you're in a relationship and you just kind of don't know what to do because maybe you feel confused, or what did you mean when you said that?
Well, obviously there's a lot going on there. So for me, a relationship is 100%, 100%. And I was in a lot of relationships where I gave a ton and I received very little back. And in means of obviously financially, um, just love and energy, but it's also just like a back and forth rapport between two people. And I got into so many relationships after my divorce, and even with my divorce was my divorce. But after I went through divorce period where, in divorce period it's chaotic altogether. And before I found my wife now, I was in relationship after relationship where I was constantly being pulled. Like everything is being pulled out of me. I felt like I had a ton of energy vampires that all they wanted to do is be around a good person. And they would get around a good person and just suck the life right out of you. And then you're just burnt out all the time. You're not excited about seeing them. You're not excited about going on dates with them. You're not excited about sharing parts of your life with them. And so you end up changing who you are. You end up changing your true identity to fit into a space. You start to try to fit into a space because you want to have a relationship. Sometimes we want to have a relationship. We fall in love with the idea of the relationship more than we are in love with the identity of what we feel soul aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I'm going to use kind of the words man and woman right now, but we're going to get a little bit more into masculine and feminine energies in just a moment. But to speak to what you said, I think that in general, men and women might feel this same feeling just in different ways, right?
Yes.
So, you felt like you were giving a lot more than you were receiving, maybe, and that you were giving away your energy. And I think a lot of times, women feel the need to kind of fit the mold of what they think their partner wants them to be as well. So I think we both struggle with that in different ways. Can you give us any, just so that people have some kind of frame of reference for the types of things that would come up for you in your relationship that would cause friction, or that really made you feel like drained and that I don't really feel excited about showing up for this? Do you have any specific examples? Because one of the reasons why I'm excited to have you here today is for us to try to understand some of the major differences between men, women, or female masculine energies, and how those differences get misunderstood and misperceived and can cause all sorts of conflicts in relationships.
For me, overly needy people, for the masculine, an overly needy woman is a very unhealthy place for them to be, because they feel like they have to take care of them and they can't take care of themselves. And so it becomes like an all energy out, no energy in. A mothering female, uh, from the, so like in the masculine feminine energy, mothering is a masculine energy. And so when you mother a guy and he's masculine, those two don't mesh well together. And so somebody has to take the role of the feminine. Usually the man takes the role of the feminine, and it loses polarity inside the relationship. So there's no sexual attraction, physical attraction between the two, because most guys don't want to have sex with their moms. And so it's one of those things where I knew I got in a lot of relationships where overly needed women that needed a ton of attention all the time. They needed to be validated all the time. They needed to be approved of all the time. Um, Also, I got in on the opposite end of that. I got into some relationships where women wanted to take care of you all the time, and that becomes overwhelming and burnout too, because you're just not really attracted to being taken care of so much. I'm not. I know some guys may be, but I'm not, truly. I think also, spaces I've seen where people don't heal wounds. They use relationships to heal wounds, or they take one wound to the next relationship and play that wound out inside the relationship. So if you have a past of men cheating on you, if you have a past of people being untrustworthy in your life, you take that to anybody new in your life and you make them that thing because that's your focus for your world. And so it becomes like this, um, in brain science, it's called your reticular activating system. So you look at what you focus on is what you'll see, and you'll find evidence wherever it is, no matter how small the evidence may be. Oh yeah, he's this person. Oh yeah, she's that person. And so I got a ton of that from different women. And then, obviously I was in my wounded space. I had tons of stuff I was working through. And so I brought that to the table, and those things didn't mesh well together.
Yeah, and so your wounded space is probably exactly the thing that was attracting
Yes.
the wounded, we'll call them like wounded females. But we have to talk a little bit more about the energies and wounds that can happen with that. But so because you were in this incredibly like giving space, women who needed lots of validation and affirmation were attracted to you because that it seemed like a great match, right? Wow, well, he's so affirming and he's so attentive and he's so this and that. And it seems like a great match,
Yes.
probably. But in reality, both of you are just kind of exacerbating the previous wounds, right?
Absolutely.
That were already there. So thank you for giving us those specific examples.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful because I think a lot of times men and women don't understand each other. And so in a woman's mind, she might be thinking, well, I make him his lunches and I do his laundry and I cater to him in all these different ways. And in her mind, she's showing her love and affection through these things that she's doing for him. But what she may not realize is that she might be doing all of these things out of a need for affirmation and to get his love by doing these things. So what kinds of things would you say that maybe you did or men do to kind of get the love from their woman, even though they might think they're doing something good?
I call it dancing. So men dance a lot. So they get in their feminine energy. So in order for men believe, wounded men, we believe that in order to get the attention of our woman, we need to get into our feminine energy. We need to be seen, heard, and felt. So we start dancing, we start doing things. We become overly giving. We become overly needy of their attention. We do things and ask for validation after we do them. Do good things and say, "Oh, was that good? Are you okay? Is everything great? How's life? Are you okay?" If a man's telling you, asking you, "Are you okay?" all the time, all they want to know is that they're okay.
Interesting.
That's all they want to know, because their own emotional state is tied up in, or their own worth is tied up in their feminine response. So a man that is overly, and this is where my wounded space was. I was overly giving. That's safe. I was in my feminine, and so I have a giving heart. The masculine, just kind of put this out there for ladies. The masculine's true nature is to love deeply, everything. and we love hard, and we want to give and take care of everything around us. That's like our true nature. So when men want to love deep, that's coming from a soul level. If men want to get love, that's coming from the wounded level. So it becomes like this very, like, I need her attention. I need to feel like she loves me. The man doesn't need to feel the love. He needs to be able to give love out at a high level. And when he's able to give love out at a high level, he feels complete inside because he's got the love in. But if the man's always trying to receive love, he's in his feminine energy. And so he can't give it out as much. He's doing activities to get love in. And it becomes this non-fulfilling prophecy because no matter how much you give to a woman, a lot of times to the feminine, if she's in her feminine and you're trying to be feminine, there's going to be a repulsion. But a lot of times when you go to your feminine, the female is automatically going to go to the masculine, and they're going to try to take care of you, and they're going to try to figure out what's going on. They're going to try to give you direction. And when that happens, the man becomes completely unseen. The feminine becomes completely not attracted because she's like, I'm raising my son. And it's not something I want to do. And it becomes a problem later on in the bedroom. It becomes a problem in just normal day-to-day interaction. You'll be good friends. There will be no attraction level in there. And it becomes a problem because the men that dance, they're trying to feel something that they don't have inside of them. They're trying to get, if it's just a nod, if it's a hug, if it's a kiss, if it's a I love you, it's a good job, whatever it is. They're just trying to get something. And there's a difference between the dance versus just giving love. Because the dance is an activity. It doesn't match their identity. This is where the identity piece comes in. I always say you can never outperform your identity. So no matter the activities you do, so if I buy flowers and I plan this date, but at the end of the night, I go back to, I really am needy of her attention to make myself feel good about doing those things, then those come from a place that is not healthy. They're like, I'm doing these things to make you feel good, for me to feel good.
Right. Yeah, so it's not like a true giving play. Like yes, you are giving, but it's not like a true authentic give because you're giving in order to receive some kind of message back from her, which will either validate you or not validate you, right? And I think one of the hardest things to find balance around this, I would imagine for men, is that in general, the male energy is a lot more solution based. Right? It's like you have a problem, here is a solution. That's just like your natural way of going about the world. And so it would make sense that if your woman's upset, your natural, kickback for your brain is say, well, what can I do to make her feel better? Right? So I would love for you to just clarify for us briefly, because people might be listening and they might never have really heard the terms like masculine and feminine energy and how that's different from like being a male, being a female, because all of us have both of these energies in us. They're just in different proportions. So can you speak to that just briefly so that we can dive into a few questions that I have for you?
So the masculine energy, like you said, is very directed. They're very pointed. They're solution based. They're trying to get from point A to point B in a straight line, no curves. I want to get there to there, and that's the end of that. They're very in self-leadership. They don't need a lot of direction on the outside. They don't like people to tell them what to do. They just kind of do things. They have open hearts. They love hard. The feminine is different.
No, excuse me. When you say they love hard, do you mean like challenges?
They love challenges too. No, they love hard. Like that means they love deeply.
Oh, they love hard. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Love hard.
Like they go all in.
They go all in. When men fall in love, they fall in love.
Yeah. And so let's just also clarify when we say we're talking about the energies here, right? And so you could have a man-man relationship and one might have more masculine energy, more feminine. You could have female-female or male-female. And even in a male-female relationship, maybe the woman has more masculine energy, the male has more. So just for people to understand, like this is an energy that is present. And when you said the word polarity earlier, just so people are clear, the reason why a lot of times you are attracted to somebody else is because of that polarity. And in order to have that in a relationship, you have to have polarity in some form. So yeah,
absolutely.
so go ahead and tell us about the feminine
The
energy.
feminine, they're opposite. So the feminine, they're not really trying to get anywhere. When you're in your feminine energy, you're not trying to get places. You're trying to be places. I'm trying to be where I'm at, and I'm trying to be flowing. Whatever life takes me, I'm going that way. If it's going this way, I'm going this way. I'm in the river. I'm just kind of moving. They're very feely, so everything is not direction oriented. It's how does this feel for me?
Mm.
They're very community based. You know, that's why women go to the bathroom together. Men don't go to the bathroom together. Women want to go to the bathroom, right? So they're very community based. They use emotions to express everything that's going on in their life. So emotionally based in terms of anything and everything, it's how they feel. And for a man, for masculine, we're kind of adverse to emotion. We try to logically think our way through things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of times you'll see a woman come to a man with feelings and a man's like, oh my God. And so you have to learn the balance of being able to hold space for emotion in the masculine versus the feminine. There's a good analogy of it would be, say a river is like the feminine. So the river can flow and it can cut through anything because the feminine is the most powerful energy there is in the world. So it can cut through anything and it can destroy anything it wants to. But the true masculine can hold the banks of the river and move it and guide it. And not that the feminine needs guiding, but the feminine likes to be led in most situations. And it's healthy that you have the balance because men and women both, like my wife she's a businesswoman. So she is a powerhouse. And so when we're in business together, it's like two masculine people going together and going forward. And then she has to flow back out into her feminine. So we're not just at odds with each other all the time. That makes sense.
Super makes sense. I've noticed that within myself. Since I started my business and becoming very purpose driven, I've definitely been aware of the fact, like, wow, like I feel so much less feminine. Like, obviously I'm still a woman and, but I used to do a lot of dancing and I used to do a lot more activities that were like feminine energy. And so having that balance is really important because it does affect how you interact with people in general and also especially with your partner, right? Like your romantic partner.
Absolutely.
I love having, you can probably see my picture here. This is my Esmeralda, she's my muse.
Yeah.
And as you can see, like the whole picture is she's just flowing. Like you can see that she's in movement. And so that I think she captures like feminine essence and I think is a major misconception, which I heard you speak about, and I would love for you to embellish on this on your Instagram page, is how women's emotions are in constant flux and it's okay. It's just the natural essence of being feminine. It's just like, men might not understand how if I'm wearing this sweater today and I love it and I feel so beautiful and vibrant, and tomorrow I might hate it. Like, to a man, I'm sure that makes absolutely no sense, right? So how can men be, like you said, able to be present and hold space for a woman when her emotions are in eternal flux? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
That's one that I've worked exponentially. So this is one that is the toughest because a man has to be super comfortable with his own self to know that because his partner is emotionally out of sorts, it doesn't mean anything about him. Men, we tend to either we want to fix it or we want to make that about us. And so we're very, hey, either way, we have the solution, right? It's either our problem because you feel this way, or I have the solution to your problem. And so what I realize is when my wife is emotional, it's not about me. And she just wants me to be there. She's like, can you just be here? I'm like, yeah, I can just be here. And just sit and listen and not offer any advice and just want to know what's going on. Be inquisitive, ask questions, be of concern, not of, I need to get this emotion away from me. Because women can figure it out on their own. The feminine figures everything out. It's the most powerful energy there is. We don't need to fix the feminine. We need to allow the feminine to process through their emotions. And so in that space, you're able to, and this is what I've learned with my wife, is I'm able to process my emotions at a faster space. And then through processing, then I can communicate and not react from my emotional space, which makes a big difference. And that's a big thing too, is learning to sit in, and I call it learn to sit in the fire, but not melt. So you sit in the fire because the emotional storm sometimes is overwhelming, especially for a masculine guy. Emotions freak you out when they get high. I have 2 daughters and a wife, so emotions can get high. And so I have to sit in the fire and not fall apart. Most men fall apart and run away. They just get scared. They don't know how to hold space for what that is because they don't understand it, because they don't feel it. Men don't feel through that. They just, oh, there's the problem. Let's move in that direction. Right. And
Right.
for them, it's like, it doesn't make logical sense for you to be doing this.
Right. Because it's not like helping
Yeah.
you to be,
Yeah.
oh, crying for an hour. It's like, this is not accomplishing anything.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So it's learning to just sit with it and sit with them and just be where your feet are. That's what I always say. If your feet are here, then your mind should be here. Your body should be here. You should be right here, eye to eye, knee to knee. And that's a big thing I practice is I get knee to knee. So if my wife is emotional, I get knee to knee with her.
Like
And
physically.
physically knee to knee.
So like close proximity is what you're saying is.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you try to control your physiological body. That means the slower you can breathe, the slower you can control your heartbeat, the more safe she feels. If you're breathing hard and you're shaking, she's not comfortable. She doesn't trust that she can open to you, and she'll take her emotions elsewhere. It's a physiological feeling because most feminine tend to be very empathic and they can feel the energy around them. And if you're nervous and if you're not comfortable being there, she doesn't feel safe to open to you.
Okay, very interesting. And so that kind of also leads into, because we want to also address equally as important, obviously, is how can the woman or feminine energy support the masculine as well. And but before we get there, so I can definitely understand how it would take a lot of practice to be able to sit in the fire and understand what it means to just hold space. And I think one important thing that you've said today that I've heard you say before is you have to make sure as a man or masculine energy that you're not internalizing her reactions to mean anything about you as a person or your ability to be a good partner. Of course there are things that or issues that you might need to discuss as a partnership,
Yes.
but when there is like an explosion, let's say in the moment, it doesn't necessarily need to mean anything about you, right? And so I think a lot of men, like you said, might either take it personally and say, oh my gosh, like I'm a horrible man, I'm a horrible partner, or they might avoid and run in the opposite direction. So every time she starts to, because this is like going to be an endless cycle now, right? It's like as the man starts to retreat and be like, I can't deal with this, I don't want to deal with this, the woman's going to become more needy because she can sense that the man is running away.
Mhm.
Right. So
it's a men have to get comfortable because men are always looking for the end of the road. So we're looking for the end of the journey. And so we think at some point, most men that don't think through the process, we think at some point she's going to change to be what we need her to be. Instead of loving her for who she is and knowing that she never stops changing. And it's day to day. The feminine is variety. That's the basis of the feminine. It doesn't matter if it's variety of shoes, a variety of clothes, a variety of emotional experiences, variety of friendships, variety of relationships. They're going to be interested in all the different things. You can give a man a steak and a potato every day for the rest of his life, and he's great. He's good to go. The same pair of shoes and a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt. He can get up and do it 5 days a week. The feminine's like, no, I need these heels, maybe flats. No, I need wedges. I got to change it. Right? So it's a different. And when men get to realize, like, you're not going to change, she's never going to be the thing that you need her to be. She's just going to be her. And you got to let her. That's what brings life to you, though. The feminine brings life to the masculine. If you're trying to make her masculine, she takes life out of you.
Sure. And I'm sure that the same is true in the other direction. Like, I know a lot of women probably try to change their man, right? And I think there's a very famous saying. It's like, when men get married hoping the woman will never change, and women get married hoping to change the man, right? So now to speak in the opposite direction, how can feminine energies, women, support their man in a way that also allows the man to be himself? Because you're saying that, you know, the woman's going to just constantly be in change, and as soon as you can kind of accept that, you're letting her be her. Mm-hmm. How does the woman or the feminine energy allow the man to be him?
I think the one thing you have to understand about the masculine is the masculine goes through tons of emotion. They don't let a lot of people see it. So if they come to you with emotion, don't try to fix it. Just try to be there. Try to be the opposite. Try to be there for him. And because he's open to you. He's going to not open to 99.9% of people. When his heart opens, be there for that heart. Don't try to mother him out of it. Don't try to say, maybe it's okay. Just, you know, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I have your back. Because that rawness and that realness is coming from his soul. It's not something the majority of people will ever see. So from an emotional space. And men will process their emotions a lot faster and a lot differently than women. So, and you also, I think a feminine help for him would be able to process and communicate emotions more effectively. Like, ask him questions that will help direct him instead of poking the bear and changing the emotion from where it is to where it doesn't need to be. Mm-hmm. Because most men when they get fearful, they're not safe. It becomes an extremely negative reaction of anger and things like that. So men love safety. Like when we plan dates, we want to know the reaction beforehand. So we plan out the date based off the reaction we see in our mind. So we know the reaction is going to happen. So we plan that date. And if we don't get that reaction, that date never gets planned again. We plan in safety. So we want safety even with our emotions. So we want to make sure when we come to you in an emotional space that we're not going to be poked like a bear. We're not going to be, you know, a lot of women are like, suck it up, figure it out. I need you to get it together. Sometimes we don't have it together. Sometimes shit happens. Sometimes we fall apart. We're going to get back up, but we need to fall apart. It's good for us. I'm a good example. I've had tons of loss in my life. I've lost both my parents in the last 6 years, and tons of loss. Best friend got murdered. You know, all kinds of things where it takes you to a place where you fall apart, but you get it back together. But you need somebody that can be there for you to help put the pieces back together.
Sure. So it sounds like, even though it's in different ways, it sounds like the masculine and feminine both need to understand how to hold space for each other.
Yes.
just in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
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 So one question I have for you is, in this balance, right? I heard you speak about when men are starting to kind of do all of these things and the woman is kind of needy, as you might say, right? Like, how, for example, does a woman be able to express what her true needs are without maybe seeming needy? And how does a man distinguish what her true needs are and what is just kind of like a call for attention?
Yeah. I think first off, with either one, you need to know what your true needs are, not what your wounded needs are.
Ah, good.
You need to know what your true needs are. Like, what do you need? What do you desire? I have every one of my clients like, what do you desire in your relationship? Not what do you need, right? What do you what do you need? You're talking from a space that you might not even understand. So what do you desire from a true, committed, conscious relationship? And then communicate those desires, those needs to the person, like in a good, calm conversation, not like after they neglected your need. Hey, I need this. Well, I'm not going to give it to you now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You want to
So
do it from,
I want to do it from a space that's calm. I need a space that's safe. We need to, you need to be able to just be truthful. My wife and I live by a principle that I want you to tell me all the things, even when it feels uncomfortable. Tell me all the things. I don't care what the need is. I need to know what it is. Because until I know, until you ask, you can't receive.
sure.
And if you have an expectation on your man to fulfill all these needs and desires, but he has no clue, guess what? He's in la la land. We're in la la land. We're focused on a direction that doesn't see your needs at this point, especially if they haven't been communicated. We can guess, we're going to get it wrong a lot of times. And so it's, if we don't have a direction toward what you desire, we're going to set a direction toward what we think you desire or what we desire.
Sure.
We're going to
Yeah.
move.
And that's one of the pillars of communication, is that you cannot expect your partner to know everything and anything about you. It needs to be efficiently expressed in a way that can generate kind of a receptive demeanor.
Yeah.
So you're not demanding things from your partner, right? But maybe you are expressing, this is a need because, and this might be one way that I will feel,
Yeah.
like, so I have a course called Wake Up from Your Breakup. And yes, it's focused on relationships, but the majority of the work, as you know, I'm sure you do in your course as well, the majority of the work is bringing the energy and focus back onto you as an individual. So to speak to what you were talking about, I'll have my clients revisit their core values, because a lot of the times we're reaching out to the other person and we're thinking that there are needs, when in fact we only might have like a handful of like truly core values, right? But you might be asking for like 50 or hundreds of needs, right? But when you pare it all down, what are your core values? Like, do you need to feel safe and secure in a relationship? Is that one of your core values? Do you need to feel trust? Is that one of your core values? And so you have to think about, well, am I giving these things to myself first?
Yes.
Or am I asking my partner to give me all of these things because I'm lacking in
Absolutely.
myself? So like filling your cup first, as you were talking about earlier.
That's a huge thing is, I've seen a lot of relationships where their values don't match how they show up in their identity. So they have these values and their identity is the opposite of what those values are. I have these things at the top, but I don't do any of those things in my life for myself, and I never have. But I expect them to be done for me. And and I won't give them to anybody else either. But another thing too is partners hold standards for each other that they won't fulfill for the other person.
True. Yeah.
So they hold standards like, you're going to do this, this, and this, but I'm not going to do that. No, if you got a standard, you need to live the standard. You need to be kind of one and the same. But yeah, I think the communication piece is so big. I mean, especially I'll tell you one that's huge in for men is sex. Men are so afraid to talk about sex with their partner, and then they complain so much. And I'm like, just talk about it. And my wife and I, we've had where I was coaching the husband and she was coaching the wife, and then we brought them together. And the first time they ever talked about sex together after like 8 years together was on a call with us. And they're
Wow.
sitting there and they're like, yeah, I like this. And the guy's like, you like what? And he goes, I like this. And she's like, you like, huh? We've never done any of this. And so it's like putting it on the table, not so you're going to get all your desires met, but you don't know what you don't know. You don't receive what you don't ask for. And it
Sure.
becomes one of those things where being openly communicative about all the things that are going on inside of here, you got to get it out of here and put it on the table. I tell guys that all the time. Men have a huge problem of overthinking. And so when we take it in, we try to figure it all out here when there's probably a simple solution. If we put it on the table, look at it and have somebody else look at it, and we can talk about it.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. If you're in a partnership, you want to communicate rather than try to solve the problem on your own, right?
Yeah.
Jim, I would love for you to speak to us just a little bit about what you mentioned in the beginning, which is how you work specifically with men about identity. What do you mean by that, and what kind of work do you do around that?
So what I've found in most people is, our identities are created between the ages of 0 and 8 years old. And so, and they're usually created for us. Our guardians, our parents, whoever have implanted these thoughts, ideas, beliefs in our mind that we've taken through our lifetime and found evidence and gathered evidence as to that's who we are. And at any point in life, we can choose a different way we want to be. The problem is most people have found so much evidence that all men are this or all women are that or all things are bad, whatever, that they haven't had they don't feel like that they can ever change it. That's just who they are. I'm terrible. I'm not a good man. I suck at relationships. I'm not a good listener. I'm not good at this. I'm not a good provider, whatever it may be. And in a moment, you can change it. It's finding what you desire, changing your focus around what you desire, and then creating small habits, small changes in your life to create that desire in your current reality. And you can change your identity around everything. I've changed addicts from from addicts to non-addicts, right? I've changed men that were perpetually broken up with to men that are married. And it's just finding what they desire. For most of their life, they've been told who they are. And now they get to decide who they want to be. And so you get to decide, when you have the choice to decide who you want to be, you get the tables open. There's a future that's really bright because then you can pick and choose and you can really change the habits, beliefs, and thoughts around those day-to-day. And I call it choosing seconds. So you choose your seconds to fit into the identity you want to be. If I want to be a man that's highly disciplined, highly committed, highly in tune with himself, then every second I got to be doing things that are aligned with that. I got to be making right choices in every moment that fit into that path. If not, I'm going to shift into a place that I'm going to revert back to the identity that I was, because I can't do enough activities unless I change the identity. You can never, this is where I said in the past, you can never outperform your identity. So if you do a bunch of things, but you don't upgrade the identity, you return back to the identity at some point. That's why you see like lottery winners who win $100 million and go bankrupt in 2 years, is because their identity is poor, but they've got this money now, but they will return back to poor unless they upgrade the operating system. And that's all I do. Just help men to upgrade their operating system to be in alignment with who they want to be in the world. In relationships a ton. I do a lot of relationship work. So my wife and I, we both do. So we do a ton of stuff around that. I help her do a woman's course. So we do a woman's course where I teach the masculine perspective to women. And then she teaches the feminine perspective to men in a men's course, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That sounds like it would be super helpful, I'm sure, on both sides. Yeah. To get that clarity and
Yeah.
And I love that you're talking about that core identity, how it can be shaped outwardly, but that it really needs to be shaped from the inside out. And so I do something similar in my program. We talk about like core beliefs, limiting beliefs.
Yes.
I'm sure there's lots of different phrases for it. And you will be making the majority of your life decisions based on your core beliefs about who you think you are, what you think you deserve, whether you think you're enough or lovable. And so those things project in your choices, not just in your romantic partnerships, but in every area of your life. You know, I'm sure that you've seen people that you've worked with, if they have an internal shift personally in their identity or in their core beliefs, all of a sudden they may get a promotion, or all of a sudden they may decide, I'm going to start my own business and then be super successful at it.
Yeah.
It's because you're showing up in a completely different space, and it's in alignment with, like you said, who you want to be, what you want to be, not what you think you should be or what you've told you have to be throughout your life, right?
This is something I work a lot, is shifting identities or making your relationship your identity. This is a problem that men and
Big
women,
one.
and I tell men all the time, like, you were born without relationship. So if you make the relationship your purpose in life, you will always be missing your purpose. And so the relationship can never be filling enough, because men are purpose driven. Like, we have a mission in life, whatever it may be. And if you're not moving in that direction, number one, you don't trust yourself. Your partner doesn't trust you. Then you're going to put the weight of your purpose on the relationship, and the relationship can never hold up to that weight. It will crumble, and you will feel dead all the time, miserable, depressed, like something's missing. Women do the same. Women go all in on raising families a lot of times to stop thinking about their purpose. And they make their family, which is beautiful, their purpose, but it's a priority. It's not your purpose in life. It's not your mission in life. And learning to balance the both. Like, I have 3 kids and a wife. I learned, like, my family is my priority. I love them to death. I will do anything under the sun for them. But if I don't move in the direction of my purpose every day, I pull away from them. I suck the energy out of them, and they can't give me enough for me to be okay.
Sure, yeah. And one thing I was thought of, just kind of popped in my head when you were describing that, is how men, I think, for a long part of their life, kind of get to develop themselves into how they want to be, and then later in life think about, and oh yeah, I got to find a mate and get married because I'm at that age now, right? Whereas unfortunately in our like American society, and I'm sure others as well, women are kind of, and young girls are kind of fed this like idea of, from a young age,
Yeah.
like you need to find a husband or a mate and like get ready to have a family. So like I think that's implanted in women's minds like at a much younger age, which does not set them up to be like core purpose driven, right?
Yeah. This is why men don't like love stories, because they're not real love stories. They're lust stories.
Yes.
The world teaches women lust. You
Yeah.
lust after the idea of Prince Charming. You lust after the idea of happily ever after. You don't ever see what happens when they get married.
Right.
You, they leave them at the altar.
Right. That's like, that's it. You're
Men
happy.
know,
You've
the men
done
know
it.
what happened after that, right?
Yeah.
So men like real, like, hey, there's a struggle after that. Men like stories that show struggle, that show adversity, that show growth through adversity, because that's real life. Women fall in love, and women have been implanted with the idea of the lust for what is rainbows and butterflies.
Yes.
And so when it's not perfect and he's not doing the next, in women, when women cheat or women have infidelity, it's because they need to be Rico Suave. They need to have the guy that comes and sweeps them off their feet, that makes them feel the lust again.
Right.
And men need to feel somebody that's safe. Men need to feel somebody that respects and appreciates them, which is the opposite. Women need to feel like they're on having butterflies and being rainbowed and butterfly and all these things again, like wine and dine and everything. So you got to have that mix. And so society has really have the Disneyfication of relationships where men know like love stories aren't real. So we hate love stories when they come on TV. And women are in love with the idea of being lusted after that much, where the end thing is marriage. But what happens afterwards?
Right. And it's probably one of the key reasons why relationships can sometimes start on a downward spiral after the like in love first 3 to 6 months passes, is because, at the beginning of a relationship, men know they have to wine and dine and, like send her into butterflies to be chosen, right, as the mate. But then it's like, well, problem solved, got her. And and then women are like, what the hell, where did all of that go? And then you start to see the separation. And so I really appreciate that you brought to our attention that the love, quote unquote, that we see in movies and media is not a realistic portrayal. And it's not to say that you can't have those things in relationship, but it's to say that it's a lot more to it in a
you
much
want the struggle.
What is it?
You want the struggle. The struggle makes love beautiful. It makes love worth fighting for. It makes, if you are willing to go through the fire for somebody and work hard together, man, that's something that the feeling you can't get out of you. Like, I love you, I love me, I love us.
Sure.
And I want to make sure like that I grow and you grow and we grow together. And whatever that takes, I'm here to hold space for you. You hold space for me. We hold space for our relationship. And we're going to see ups and downs. I'm going to fall apart sometimes. You're going to fall apart sometimes, but I'm there to pick you up, and you're there to pick me up. But we got each other's back through anything.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you're talking about that it's both give and take. And I think sometimes people mistake like going out on a limb for the other person all the time, and like this is talking about when you're both in alignment for what you each want as individuals and as a partnership. Like, we're not talking about the fact that you need to stick around, if you're in an abusive relationship because, well, you've always been there for him and he always comes back to you. That's completely different. Right.
Get away from that, run fast.
Yeah. Yes.
I preface that anytime we talk about this stuff in a course or with the clients, like, hey, if you're in this relationship, this type of relationship, it feels like this, it looks like this, you need to run away. Like, this is not a safe place to live this out.
Right.
I get it. But if you're in a place where you're in a relationship where two healthy people are, now they may not be emotionally healthy all the time and their wounds might come out and play, then it needs to be a 100-100 relationship. Like, each person is giving all they have to each other. It's not a 50-50 like we've been sold a bag of goods where I do half, she does half. No, I'm going all in and I got all of me. She has all of her and we have all of us together.
Right.
Because if I'm half and half, then I need to pull another 50 from her to feel good. She's got to pull a 50 from me to feel good. And we're always going to feel drained from each other.
Right. For sure. Yeah. And I always say too, that as long, like no one's ever perfect or like reached total enlightenment. So like as long as you're both on the growth path, you can grow together. And you're committing to that growth within yourself as an individual, and you're each doing your own jobs, but then you can come together and do your jobs 100% as a partnership too. Yeah.
Grow the relationship. There's a term or a phrase I use, me growth equals we growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I grow myself and you grow yourself, we're going to grow our relationship.
Sure. I love that phrase. That works out. So Jim, tell us where people can find you and if they want to learn more about you or your programs.
Yeah. On Instagram, I'm the.conscious.man. On Facebook, I'm Jim Vance. I have a podcast my wife and I do called Advance Your Life Podcast. Finding Power Through Polarity. So it's a pretty awesome podcast where we do tons and tons of conversations around polarity in relationships, polarity in life, and how that plays out in all different ways and shapes and forms. So it's pretty cool. And you can follow me there. And we have an Instagram just for that called Creating Conscious Couples, which is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this would be an episode people can re-listen to over and over again. There's some really great reminders.
I really appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Talk to you guys. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like and share this video with anyone you think would benefit, and say subscribe so you can get these awesome upcoming episodes, and I will see you next time.